What's up, world? This is Wilson coming at you with the movement. I'm here with Cam.
What's up?
JP.
Yo.
And obviously me.
And myself.
And myself.
And
Yes.
myself.
Don't I
Allow
look pretty?
myself to
Yeah.
introduce.
Welcome to
Absolutely.
the room, Wilson.
Yeah, you are welcome to be here at this table. No. But we're pretty pumped. We've just been chatting. What? I was saying you guys were welcome to be at this. I was kidding.
With you.
It was
With
yes.
you.
Yeah.
God, it's such a pleasure for you guys to be sitting here with me
I
right
know,
now.
It is. It is.
So we're talking about perspective, huh?
Right.
Yeah, well, that's one way to look at it.
Right. So perspective creates clarity is the topic for the day. And just wanted to just let everybody know that, you definitely want to create a good perspective, especially if you're looking to create clarity. But and the reason being is so I don't know if you guys have seen this before or whatever. When you're interacting with other people, they come to you with one side of the story and that they want you to believe that is the truth, and then that's all you go off of, and then you try to make a decision. And
Yeah, I
you
got
can't.
kids.
Yeah, you get kids.
Yeah.
So, but even adults, man,
No,
they'll
it's
do
true,
this.
yeah.
They'll
In management positions, for sure. I know Josh has seen that, I'm sure. I did back when I was in management, of course.
right.
Yeah.
So I in everything that I ever done, I've never only took one side. And I've had multiple people in my family who were like, "Oh, you're always picking sides." I'm like, "No, I'm not picking any side. Actually, I'm listening to every side and then making it my decision." And it was kind of funny because we're the climate that we went in through until now with America and where it's all going. I wish more people had perspective because then they can make a clear decision and not be easily swayed. I think that's very important. But what you just kind of off the cusp, what does perspective and clarity mean for you guys? And you just kind
You
of
say
talk
off the cusp?
off the cuff.
Cuff.
There it is.
Sorry. Thank you.
There it is.
Yeah, it's called Wilson's Dictionary. It just comes out.
Hey, man.
The Wiktionary.
There you go. It's so witty.
Wilktionary. What was the question?
About having clear perspective and why it's important.
I mean, we can talk about why it's important. It's just so much easier, though, if you just watch the news and let them tell you what you're supposed to think.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I feel like that's really what we've gotten to. It's just like, what's the laziest way to make a decision?
Right.
CNN.
Right.
Or whatever, But no, it's interesting you're talking about this because we were just talking about one of our newer listeners who last couple of weeks has started listening to the program, and I've even seen him since then, and it's had a lot of great feedback, and he's really getting a lot out of it, which we appreciate for sure. And we're glad that it's adding value. But we got to talking about some of the more in-depth episodes, and he was asking, do you ever have guests on there or anything like that? Because he hasn't gone back. And so I was telling him about what we did right after all the, the BLM, George Floyd stuff happened, and how we had Trey Stewart on, and then we had Daniel Francis on, and, the reasons that we had those two guys on for the positions they're in as men, for their cultural backgrounds, all that kind of stuff. And it was for exactly that. It was because, it's easy for us as three white guys to have a certain perspective, even though our life has been different, we've grown up differently and things like that, but culturally are pretty similar, and that's why we wanted to come in and say, hey, let's have that other perspective, because this is an important topic, and really any topic's important to have perspective, unless you're talking about like which sour gummy worm do you like best.
Right.
I think we'd all agree it's the red one.
They all taste the same.
Get out.
They're all the same. Did you guys know that Skittles were all the same flavor? I mean, now that we're starting to get into some important shit.
What?
There's no.
Yes,
all
they
have
are.
different ones.
Yes, they are. They're all the same flavor. So is Captain Crunch.
Now that I would believe.
Well, I could see that.
Unless you
Not
buy
Skittles.
unless you buy the cotton candy.
But the
one.
Skittles, no,
They're
there's
not.
a little bit of
they're
difference.
all the same flavor. Look it up.
Look it up. I don't have
Seriously.
to look it up. I taste them.
Google it.
Google it.
Google
Really?
it. It's on the internet. It's
So
got to
it's-
be true.
You know
So
what?
it's
You know
all just
what?
in your mind.
I'm just going to watch the news. Whatever they tell me, that's
Yeah,
what I'm going
I'm just
with.
gonna-
Exactly right. So there's perspective for you right there.
So how important is it? It's huge, because if you don't have perspective, you might think all Skittles taste the same. But for those of us that are intelligent and educated, we realize that there are some differences. Gosh, I'm just shaking his head.
Definitely.
No, but it's in all seriousness, I joked about having kids. The other side of that would be with your spouse. I know as a man, for me, and I guarantee you this is the same for most every other man that's married or has been, taking the time to try to see your wife's perspective is so incredibly important.
And hard.
Very
hard.
So important.
It's so hard. No, it's incredible.
It really
it's like
is hard.
one of the most challenging things on earth.
Yeah.
But that's probably why it's one of the most important things on earth, because I promise you her perspective is not the same as yours. I don't care how much you think you are alike or see the world alike or whatever. Like, she a girl, you a boy.
Right.
It's different.
Well, just trying to explain something to her. We went to a craft fair with Ashley and her business and stuff, and I was trying to explain something to my wife. Joe's sitting there, and he's like on the same page with me, understanding everything that I was saying, and her, it's just kind of like not so much. That the pink headphones and the blue whatever you were talking about.
That's love and respect.
Yep.
Yep.
So, but you had a good topic once talking about perspective, but I don't think we were talking about that topic in general, but you were talking about a guy on a mountain and a guy in the city.
Seeing over the peak,
different
how
perspective.
real small.
Oh, the size of the city
where
versus
somebody's inside of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, perspective is important. Perspective is important to somebody who wants to develop mental maturity. I think there's a lot of people that live within their own bubble. They want to see their perspective because it is hard to branch out and look at somebody else's point of view and take it like honestly and take it and listen to it. Because there's a lot of stuff out there that I don't necessarily agree with. Doesn't mean that it's wrong, because where they see it as right.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with like we were just talking about, in your marriage, it's not always black and white. And I've found that as I've gotten older, it's not always black and right. It's not always right and wrong. Now, there are a lot of things that are right and wrong, which I think should be packaged into that principle-based lifestyle that you live, that you don't sway from at all. But I think it comes down to, are you more interested in being right, or are you more interested in being effective in your life? Because you're not going to be right all the time. And if you're trying to be right all the time, you're just going to be frustrated. Because then you're just going to argue with people on stuff that there is no black and white, So I think listening to other people's point of view on things, I think seeing things from different angles actually starts to build a little bit of credibility about you, because even people that don't agree with you will listen to you at that point in time.
And one of the things about that, like to agree 100% with what you're saying, is taking the time to say I'm sorry, because being right all the time, you never say that. But if you're willing to not be right, then you're probably saying I'm sorry every now and then. You know what? I was wrong.
Right.
And it does build credibility, whether it be in your subordinates at work that you manage, or whether it be in your relationship at home, or anywhere. I mean,
so I'm very, I don't know, I guess I'm very logical about my approach to just about everything. And like you were talking about in your relationship, with my wife, it's like so difficult for me personally, because I want to solve the problem. My intention is to solve the problem. Well, she doesn't want me to solve the problem. She wants me to listen to the problem. She doesn't want me to solve it. She's good. She knows how to solve it. She just needs to vent to somebody. I struggle with that. That's something that I struggle with, but I'm trying to face that from a like we're talking about right now, from a perspective kind of standpoint. Like, I can learn like where her triggers are. I can take this as an opportunity to learn where, she's hurting, or where, she doesn't understand, or she's emotional about things and stuff like that. And we're different, obviously. Doesn't mean that it's right or wrong or whatever. We're just different. So from a management perspective, like you were talking about, that's a great point. One of the greatest things that I have going for me in my career is the fact that I've seen the streets of the city, and I've seen, not the top of the mountain, but I've seen from the mountain what the city looks like. So the difference is, I know what the guys that are on the ground floor, the boots on the ground, are actually doing. Which creates that trust and respect within the guys that are doing the jobs, because I've actually done it. I'm not a guy that just came, straight out of college and sat down at a desk and was creating all these policies and expectations of individuals for something that I've never done. And for me personally, once my business gets to the point, where I really want it to be at, that's going to be your proof of concept. You walk in, I don't care what your education is, you walk in, you're going to spend time doing what the people that you will be instructing are doing. And it gives you that perspective, and it changes the way that you act. If your perspective is clear on the area around you, then you're going to make better decisions. I mean, it's just the way that it is. And not only do you make better decisions, but the people that work for you in those cases, or the relationships that you have, those people buy into your shit instead of just disregarding it. Because if you start throwing a bunch of stuff out there for something that you've never done, the guys that are out there are going to go, he's full of shit. He's sat behind a desk his whole life. He's never done this. You might have some good stuff, but it doesn't stick because they instantly, where'd this come from? No, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well, it's like military. You hear these guys that go straight through officer training,
Right.
and they've never been boots on the ground, and then they come out and they're supposed to lead these guys that've been in battle. It's hard. I mean, you got to be one hell of a dude to step into that role, because ultimately, like at the beginning, those soldiers are going, and you don't know the shit I've seen.
Yep.
And you can't blame them really.
Yep.
And at the same time, like you said, the officer might actually know what he's talking about. He might actually be right. He's got to make some deposits first.
Well, that's the thing. Those guys end up developing their clout with the guys that are in the field by being in the field with them.
Yep.
Once they're out there in the field with them, they prove their gall. They're tough as nails. They have a brain and stuff, and they're sharp individual like that. That's when it starts to become real to those guys, and they go, okay, wait, he's an asset. He's not a boss. He's an asset. He's somebody that can help us.
Doesn't that make sense though? We're talking about perspective, and like, what does it take to get perspective in that situation, or with your spouse, or with talk about both sides of the aisle in politics. And how do you get that? By spending time together, conversating, and getting to know how you think.
Oh, shut
Yep.
up.
I know.
Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. You
I
can
would
do it on
think-
chat.
I would think you could do it on Facebook on comments alone.
You can do it on chat.
Oh god.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
That's
you could do it
typically
on
pretty effective. But I have found in my life that outside of social media rants, the next best way to actually gain perspective of somebody else in conversation is to sit down with them one-on-one and like find out how they actually tick.
If you didn't pick
Why
that
would you
up,
say that?
that's sarcasm.
Lord,
if you didn't pick that up, please God, don't
And
go
that's going to be the last time we give a disclaimer on sarcasm
Yes.
because we're going to need you to step up your mental game on the sarcasm.
For real. So why would you say, like, explain that to somebody who just doesn't get that? Why is it important to sit down face to face? What do you gain from that conversation?
Well, number one, you're showing that you care enough about that person to try to understand what they think. So I think right there you drop some barriers. Number two is if you're actually approaching that conversation with a mindset of I want to listen instead of I want to talk, then you actually will understand them at a deeper level. I mean, it's impossible not to. You can have an hour-long conversation with somebody over coffee or a beer or whatever and just realize like this is not who I thought he was or she was or they were or whatever, Doesn't mean you're going to agree with them. Doesn't mean you're going to change anything on how you feel about that, whatever topic it is, but you may have a better understanding of why they think the way they think, and it may be a little easier for you to go, okay, I don't hate you. Like, I still don't agree with you, but I don't hate you as a person. I just think that you're wired the way you're wired and you probably couldn't help it.
Yeah.
Well, it's a matter of understanding, right?
Yep.
So it's one of those things where you can walk away from it and go, I don't agree with you, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Get it, dude.
Yep.
Like my parents
It's
didn't
not
have
personal anymore.
Yeah, my parents didn't have that experience and I didn't live in it or whatever. It's just like anything, man. Everybody is a product of their environment. So the way that they believe and what they see is from the environment that they came from. And if you're not in this whole conversation that we're talking about right now from a perspective standpoint, if you can't walk into that situation and sit down with somebody and be open-minded about it, if you're constantly sitting there trying to think about what you're going to say next rather than actually try to hear that person out, then you're missing it. So we'll start with that. If you are going to sit down with somebody and have a conversation and have the intention of understanding perspective around you, which I would highly suggest, you have to be open-minded about it because that's the only way that you're going to gain that perspective. If you're not open-minded about it, then you're just walking in there with an agenda.
And if you're like me and JP, you want to interject.
All the
that's
time.
just our natural. That's our nature, And it's one of the hardest. And I've tried to practice this more in my marriage, is because I feel like I'm right about something, And I might be right, but it doesn't really matter because I need to gain perspective on the other side of things.
So hold on. One of the things that I love about that is, so I've been working on the whole listening thing too, and that's why I interrupted you because I wanted
I
you.
appreciate that.
I wanted you to listen to me.
That's a great example for our listeners to.
No, but what you start to find though, and I heard this, and I can't remember who said it, but I know it was somebody pretty significant in my life. But they said the man
Was it
who
me?
It could have been you. It could have been you. The man who asks questions holds the power.
Oh yeah.
So one of the things that you got to
It wasn't me, but I know. Yeah,
yeah. Wait, you don't speak in parables. Is it parables? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
So, anyways, the man who asks the questions holds the power. So if you're willing to listen to somebody talk, then you put yourself in a position where you're able to ask questions. So even if you do have the intention of trying to change somebody's mind, you're better off listening to their perspective and then asking questions that are triggered or targeted towards what their love is or what their and you can ask those targeted questions. Now it takes mental maturity once again, but you have to listen to what they say, listen to it, listen to their heartbeat, and then say, well, why do you feel like that? Do you feel like maybe in the past, the way that the government has screwed you over because, maybe there was some issues that happened with your family or something, you felt like they were being held down or whatever. Well, yeah, it was blah, blah, blah. So you don't think at all that it had anything to do with like what your parents did or anything like that? Well, I mean, I'm sure they didn't make all the best decisions. Well, I'm sure they made a lot of good decisions. Yeah, well, they made a lot of shitty, decisions too. They did. And that's really what it is. And because if you, it's not about being right. It's about being effective, right? So you have a conversation with somebody and you find out where their perspective's from. Then you can meet them where they're at and bring them to where you are.
And I'll talk on an even more surface level type environment in sales. And we talked about, no, I'll take that back. This is my dad and I were talking about this over Thanksgiving because we went to look at, this tell you how redneck I am growing up and I'm totally proud of it. We went to look at a new bush hog for the farm, and
we was all excited.
Yeah, we were so fired up.
Let's go cut some shit.
Yeah, we're gonna cut down some brush on the fence line. But no, we went. So we're talking to the guy that makes them. He created. It's a whole another story. But this guy kind of created this new style of bush hog that cuts at 90 degrees or whatever. And now there's these big companies out there that make them, but they make them cheap. They don't make them right. And so I learned a lot from this dude. He's really intelligent. But my dad was like, he's kind of like you. He said he's a pretty good salesman. And like kind of like the way you approach things. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, as I asked it, I understood what he meant. But basically, you're asking questions. I'm not there to push something on you, just like the other topic. I'm not pushing an agenda on you. I'm not pushing a product on you. I'm literally trying to find out where you are and where you're wired, how you're wired. So I'm asking questions to find out how you tick, and then I'm pulling you over to truly filling a gap that maybe you have in your mind, or a gap that you have, a need for, or whatever. And that is truly how I approach things. And I literally, before I came over here, I was with a customer and I had that exact same conversation about, ultimately ended up with, I like the way, that's what he said. I like the way you talk. I'm going with you. You just tell me when you can do it.
Hell yeah.
And I didn't talk that much. I honestly didn't. I asked a few questions and let him tell me everything under the sun. But I found out what he was actually looking for, and not just from a product standpoint, but from what he needed to feel good about, and it makes such a huge difference, and now there's a connection there. And that's what you're trying to get to, is you're trying to connect, whether it be politics, whether it be, something as deep as a race conversation, in our culture right now, or whether it be trying to get your kids to eat their dinner, there's gaining their perspective and then helping them understand your perspective, or maybe pulling them into opening up their perspective a little bit, is a really complicated way of saying that.
Yeah. You guys hit on a couple of things because, how can perspective lead you in the right and wrong direction? You guys kind of hit on that because what you said was your environment, you're a product of your environment. If all that you know is your environment, that's how you're going to lead to a right or wrong decision. Because if you're raised in a wrong environment, how are you going to know that if that's what you're used to? Like you didn't know not to say certain things or say, whatever. You can kind of get where I'm going with that. Anything else you want to add on that type of topic? Just came off your top of your head.
One other thing that JP said earlier, like 15 minutes ago, you can rewind and listen to it again. You can actually go to YouTube and watch it as well.
Subscribe.
If you want to go to YouTube, you can go there right now. You search for Shepherds of Men and you subscribe. And you like, and you hit the little alarm and the follow and all the little buttons that are there.
Yeah.
I would highly suggest it.
Yeah.
And we would appreciate it.
We appreciate that.
Go do it now.
Do it now.
Meow.
But one of the things you were talking about was having things that trigger. The way I heard it from what you said was having things that trigger perspective for you. And I was thinking about this conversation I was having earlier today as well, which was keeping yourself humble. Like, so having things that remind you of where you came from. I know what it was. You're talking about, I've been there. I've been blue collar and I've been on the floor sweating and getting dirty. And I've also been white collar, but I worked my way through all those steps. And so I have a different perspective than somebody that just jumped straight in it. I still do stuff like that on purpose. I told this dude earlier, I said, the reason I still have a push mower is because it keeps me humble. You know, like I try to do things to help me not feel too good about myself. Not to get too big headed.
Right.
I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Keep you humble.
So it keeps perspective.
Okay.
Like I remember when I stopped for gas and I had 68 cents to my name and I got 68 cents worth of gas. Think about that for a second. Now actually it's cheap again now, but I got 68 cents worth of gas, not even a whole dollar. Like I will never, ever, ever forget that. And there's times I've had conversations with my wife early in our marriage and I had to tell her why I think the way I think about something. I was like, cause I don't forget what it's like to not have shit. I don't. And so that's why, but if you keep that perspective, you stay hungry, you stay humble, you think about others more probably,
Absolutely. It helps create a clear perspective when you remember all those things.
100%.
And I liked how you were talking about, like, if you go to somebody's table or other place, me personally, I think everybody should get cultured. I think everybody should go and experience a different countries other than just America, and then they understand what they actually have. And I think that would help develop a clear perspective in general on just what you're grateful. If you were born and blessed to be in America, you've got. I mean, you're one in what? I don't know, a couple thousand.
As they
or
say,
something.
you won the lotto, man.
Yeah, you won the lotto because you live in a land of free currently. So we need to keep it that way. But I like that. Whenever my first eye-opening moment to have a better, clearer perspective and not be into that entitlement mentality was when I went to a mission trip, and that humbled me big time just to see that they could be happy with little, and I had much more than what they had, but I wasn't happy, and that was the problem. So how do you? I like to get to this because you guys have to make decisions every single day, but mostly you, if you have any, perspective in this regard. How do you make decisions without clouding your perspective? Like, you got all this stuff coming at you. How do you just kind of like, okay, what's the most important thing, and then let's make the decision?
I ask questions.
Okay.
So I'm a big proponent of asking questions. No, I don't delay a decision because I need a bunch of information. So I make intelligent decisions in a timely manner based off of what I have available to me. So I keep a very strong association where I work at. I know people that do very well at what they do. So I know who I want to ask questions to. And then I base my decisions quickly off of what those are. And I'm not afraid to make a decision. I've never been afraid to make decisions at work. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why I've had a successful career is because of the fact that I don't have a problem putting my balls on the table, because no matter what happens, I know I can recover from it. Now I don't make hasty, stupid decisions. But like I said, like when it comes to me having to make a decision on something, the first thing that pops into my head, and this is something that I've developed over time, is questions that are relevant to what I'm trying to accomplish. So if I have to make a decision based on something that has to happen, I'll hit maybe 4 or 5 people up and I'll ask specific questions to concerns that I have with that decision that I have to make that fits into their wheelhouse and what they're experts in. Okay. So if I had to make a decision on what kind of tires to buy, I would talk to somebody that probably knew my truck really well. I talked to somebody that knew tires really well. I talked to somebody that knew, I don't know, the road conditions here really well. And I'm just using this as a really easy example. And I would ask, easy questions to each one of those guys. Like, hey, what do you think about it? Without any context, because I don't want any emotional attachment to it. I want them to give me an answer on what they think. So I won't give them a whole lot of context and stuff. It'll be like, hey man, what kind of tires do you think in Tennessee would be best for like a year-round tire? If I was going to buy a tire around here just with the weather conditions and stuff like that. Would I need an all-terrain or something like that, or for an SUV? And then I would talk to somebody else saying, "Hey, I got a Sequoia, and I know that you've had Sequoias your whole life and stuff. What have you found really rides good, with Sequoias as far as tires are concerned?" "Oh, I think this one," because most of the time people want to give you answers. They just do. Everybody has an opinion, right? They're like assholes. Some just stink worse than others. Everybody's got one. So
Wait, they all stink?
Yeah. Well, no.
Some worse than others.
Fine. I can't smell.
It's perspective.
Perspective. There
It's
it
all
is.
perspective.
Yeah.
Different nose.
So I think for me, from a decision-making standpoint, my first thing is surround yourself by people that you trust their opinion. First thing. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to take it. Like if somebody says, "Oh man, you got to get some mud tires on that sumbitch," I'm like, "Oh no, I'm not putting mud tires on it because I got to drive it around all the time." So it's still shopping cart method. But if you have 4 or 5 people, you can make a very educated decision that will not steer you in the wrong direction. Will it be the best decision? Not all the time, but it's okay. You don't have to make a perfect decision every time you make a decision, because you know what that is? It's called paralysis.
Right.
You will shut down.
Analysis.
You will shut down. So that's kind of how I approach that.
No, I think you nailed it.
Yep.
I mean, I can't add much to that other than just like know who you're taking input from, be willing to make a decision, and consider the fact that if you're only making decisions based on your own personal information, then you're only ever going to be as far along as you are in your head right now.
So, what are some other ways that people can create clarity in their life with perspectives and just in general?
Don't do drugs.
Exactly.
And that brings me to my next point. Don't smoke crack.
Even if it's legal in Oregon.
Hey, that's not true.
Oh, it's not?
I don't know. I saw something that said that wasn't entirely true.
Entirely.
I don't even know what that means.
Who knows? How do you create clarity?
With perspective, or however you want to.
I mean, I think going back to what Josh was just talking about,
perfect.
if you have 4 or 5 people in your inner circle that you can be very candid with, that'll give you a lot of clarity on the way you think. Me personally, from a spiritual perspective, prayer and time in the Word brings great clarity. I mean, I can just tell you, my mind is far more clear when I am disciplined in those habits, and far more foggy when I'm not. So
absolutely, I agree with that.
And the physical side of it too. Yeah, like recently with running or hitting the gym like Josh does with CrossFit. I mean, there's certainly some mental clarity. Now that I'm getting some further distances, after you get past a few miles, you really start getting in a mental zone, not just a physical zone. Which is the same as you would see if you're doing weight training or whatever else, but you start to think at a little bit different level, because you have to focus and yet not. It's weird, like, because you have to not focus on the physical, so it's almost like your brain goes to a different mental depth to ignore the physical pain. I don't know how to explain that better, but
no, that's actually a great way to explain that, because that's one of the things that, like, I mean, obviously, that pain is nothing more than a trigger from your body to your brain that your brain interprets as trouble. We're in trouble. Like, we're in trouble. So you start to really, and I would agree with the exercise part of things, definitely, because I think it does create some mental clarity, because it allows you to start to control your brain. From a different perspective. You have the ability to control your brain and how it analyzes pain, and you start to take control over it. I think the other side, from a perspective and from clarity, is to stop running away from your past and understand where you come from. You made a comment about being redneck proud of it and stuff like that, which is freaking awesome. And I think that's cool, because there's certain aspects of that, like, you can throw all the money out there in the world and stuff, but there's things that I remember, and we talked about this in the holiday one, like when I was younger, that I really enjoyed, that where we didn't have a dime to our name, but I remember making sugar cookies, and stuff like that. And like, there's certain perspectives, but there also are the bad that came with that. There's some things that I remember from my past. So when you can start to relate the person that you are today, that you've become because of the environment that you were around, you can start to create some clarity on why you make decisions the way that you do, and why you are the person that you are, and why you interact with people. I mean, everything that you do, every aspect of your life, like your your ability to push through, hard times, your procrastination, all that is a product of your environment. And some of that clarity on perspective is being honest with yourself on where you came from. Now you can fix it, but it's okay to be honest with yourself on where you came from. And then we've already touched on it, talking to other people about, their perspectives and stuff like that. Because I'll tell you, one of the things that really is a really good indicator. So you can sit back and I'll use CrossFit because it was something that was kind of an eye opener for me. You can sit back and watch a CrossFit competition and look at some of these guys that are the best in the world. And you're just like, man, they're out there dying. They're in good shape and stuff like that. And then when you go in there and you do a tenth of what they did and you're about to die, that's perspective. Because then you look at it and go, holy shit, that dude's a badass. That's just like a fight, in boxing or something like that. Like the guy that's calling out McGregor right now.
Jake Paul.
Jake Paul, yeah, whatever his name is. So he's calling out McGregor, one of the best MMA fighters of all time. And he's calling him out and stuff like that. And the fact of the matter is he's never been in the cage.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's one thing. He's a boxer. He's done a good job, whatever. He's never been in the cage with McGregor. So there's going to be a certain level of perspective that he does not have that he's going to learn if it does happen. I don't think it'll happen. But if it does happen, he's probably trying to get a payday and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but
sure.
On the flip side of that, the guy that he fought was a basketball player.
Yeah, Nate Robinson.
Scrappy guy.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, he's a scrappy guy. He's one of those, tough guys. He's scrappy as hell and stuff like that. But he's not a boxer.
He got knocked up.
And he did. But that's the thing. There was that perspective wasn't there. It is now.
Oh, he's got some perspective.
It
And
is
if he
now.
doesn't, there's plenty of video out there.
It is now.
to remind him.
And
You've seen those Tweety birds.
Yeah, but that's why I appreciate from a certain level anybody that's a professional in their field. I've said it before in podcasts. I love watching people that are great at what they do, and I don't care what it is, because from a perspective standpoint, I've been humbled enough doing different things to go, man, the people that are the best at this are bad motherfuckers. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're one of the guys that are the Asian guys that you see in the videos that are sitting there flipping pages or stamping stuff like 1,000,000 miles an hour and stuff like that. Like, it might be insignificant, but he's damn good at what he does. I mean, and from a perspective standpoint, like you until you take those pages or envelopes and start flipping them and stamping them yourself, you have no idea how good that guy really is.
All due respect to Nate Robinson too. I mean, the dude won like three dunk competitions in the NBA. He played in the NBA, number one, for a number of years. He won 3 NBA All-Star dunk contests, and then he went on to attempt boxing. So I mean, kudos to him, dude.
Oh,
'Cause
sure.
A lot of people would have
Yeah.
never stepped in the ring. So now he may want to consider doing something else now. But I got respect for him. Just when you've played at such a high level in one thing. And then you can see how somebody's wired when they're just like, I'm just not content with not being great at something, or or playing in a different arena than just normal life. So
I have a ton. I'm like you. I have a ton of respect for the fact that the guy was willing to step into the ring and get the perspective that was there. Because the same thing with a conversation. It doesn't have to be a fight. It could be a conversation. Like if you're willing to sit down with somebody that has a belief that's different from yours. Like if you're a diehard Christian and you're willing to sit down with an atheist and have a genuine conversation on why that person. So I've always appreciated, pastors or evangelists and stuff like that they don't look to go talk to somebody that is a Southern Baptist that wants to accept everything they have. They want to go talk to somebody who needs the help.
Yep.
Right.
Because there's a certain level of perspective that they need to gain from that.
I was going to say, not even needs the help, but just them talking to see what they can get out of it from the other person's perspective.
Yeah.
I had a family member one time. I invited him to church, and the response I got was like way more negative than I expected. Like almost like not offended by it. It was just weird. And I was like, and I told him, I was like, it's just kind of weird that you're that put off by me inviting you to go to church. And they were like, and their family. So this was an in-law of sorts. Their family was Jehovah's Witnesses. That's how he grew up. And he said, well, if I invited you to a Jehovah's Witness service, would you go? I was like, sure. Like, why not? It doesn't mean I have to be one. And
Right.
I'm not telling you got to convert. I'm just telling you might enjoy it, or we can hang out or whatever.
Did you know that though?
I would love
before
to.
you
I mean,
asked?
honestly, what's it?
Did you know that he was a Jehovah's Witness?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for sure. But I was just surprised at how closed off.
Oh,
And it was really, I'm not willing to gain perspective. And I wasn't trying to. I genuinely wasn't trying to convert him. I was just like, "Hey, you want to go?"
Well, some of it,
and I was actually intrigued to go to a Jehovah's Witness. I have no intentions of believing the things they believe, but I would be intrigued just to go see.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll let you in though.
Oh, really?
I mean, they don't even have windows in the buildings. Like,
Really?
I don't know.
I've never been.
My dad always said, if there's no windows in the building, somebody doesn't want you to see something.
Right.
And then I started
Crazy
noticing, like, none of them have windows. Any of the Kingdom Halls, none of them have windows.
I've never noticed.
Don't get offended if you're a Jehovah's Witness. I really don't care. I really couldn't care less, man. You do you. But that's an interesting thing to think about,
If you have a van with no windows.
That's different. That's different. I want to go back to something you said, too, because as we're talking about you do you, having the people around you, having that inner circle that you can gain perspective from, I think is highly important. But I don't want people to get that confused with not thinking for yourself. Because I think one of the most terrifying things I see in our culture right now is the masses not thinking for themselves. So, yes, take educated input from people that have fruit on the tree. I think that's maybe the difference makers. Take input from a handful of selected people that have fruit on the tree in the arenas that you want to be good in. But think for yourself. Like, use your own brain.
Shopping cart method.
Yeah.
Well, that's why the whole statement.
Maybe even a shopping basket.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, where you're going to be at by the people you associate with, the 5 people you associate with. I can tell you almost on average how much money you make per year. Yep. And your schedule. And there's a lot of truth to that. So you need to be very careful about the association that you pick. So and that's a great point from a clarity perspective. When I say that I pick, and utilize, I guess, advice from people. These people have been vetted. I don't just,
right.
I don't just go to, and I don't mean vetted, like, yeah. Hey, buddy.
Hey, I noticed you have tires on your truck.
I noticed you got some grease on you.
Where should I get mine?
You worked on one of these before?
I noticed you've never been married. You don't have kids. I need some marriage advice on how to be a good dad.
People do that.
They do.
They do it all the time. And it's because people don't understand that everybody wants to give advice.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to give you advice.
The fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Check the fruit.
Please.
Well, then you create your own perspective. That's the goal. Is like you not being ingrained into a perspective of somebody else's wheel, like pushing on you. You go and actually do what you're talking about, what the shepherds have suggested at this table, and actually go and get people to their opinions and learn. Always be an open-minded learning deal. Doesn't mean that you have to be converted. Doesn't mean that you like what you were saying. You're just going to learn something different that you didn't have before. That if you are devoted Jehovah's Witness and you went to a Christian church of some sort, you would learn their angle and then go, okay, hey, let's convert some of them, or what? You know what I mean? I mean, there's a lot of different angles you can go that route, but just not being so closed-minded.
Well, JP said this earlier, and it was spot on. He's like, there's a lot of things. And I agree, and the same in my life. There's a lot of things in my life that are black and white.
Yes.
And the foundational principles of my life are black and white. But the older you get, the more mature you get, the more years you're on this planet, I believe, I've seen in my own life, there's also more gray area. And by gray area, I don't mean things that I'm wishy-washy on. I mean things that I'm still learning, like things that I'm still gaining perspective on. So like my core is black and white, but the things that I'm not an expert in or not well-versed in even, I'm open to thinking differently about it. I'm 100% open. Now, the things that I know for sure, I'm not really, I'll still listen.
Right.
But it'd have to be a game changer to get me to tweak my thinking on certain things. But anything else, like, I mean, I genuinely, the older I am, I don't even like using that word, the more years that pass,
The more mature
I am mentally and physically and mathematically, then the more open I am to trying to understand other people's perspective. Well, I could give a lot of examples. I won't go into that.
That's good and important. That's very important.
It's hugely important. I think it is for me, anyways, because it's also really. I think the easier thing to do is to close yourself off and be like, like we talked about recently. John talking about I'm all breathed up. Like it's all. You can also go, I'm all learned up.
Yep.
I'm all knowledged up. No, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Like you. Hopefully, you don't ever stop that until you die. In which case you should be gaining more and more perspective every day of your life. But a lot of people just close off and say, nope, I know what I know, and that's everything.
Knowed what I know.
And if I don't know, I'll just go watch CNN and they'll tell me.
And that's the problem.
And the proverbial ceiling.
Exactly. About the height of your television.
Right. So I'm going to wrap up. Do y'all have any other things you would like to say? Okay. So I loved all the viewpoints, everything that you guys said. So I do appreciate your time in this. And a clear perspective is just a viewpoint that you can only achieve if you have all the facts and all the angles. You got to make sure that you're seeing it from other people's perspectives and the other people's shoes, and making sure you do your due diligence to learn that, and not just be one-minded. Perspective that you foster hang on. So the perspectives that you have fosters decisions, and without a clear perspective, it could lead you in the wrong direction. So make sure you think things through and have all the angles and facts before you make those decisions. With that, guys, we are done. I thank you for taking the time to listen to us. Go check us out. We have a lot of new swag coming up. So to be checking those channels to see what we got coming out here soon. Also, go to YouTube, all the Facebooks, subscribe, do all those things. It's definitely helpful, and get the word out, because with you, we can build this thing even more. So go become.